Hey everyone, hello. Welcome to Chimoge's Comments America. My name is Chimoge. Please, as usual, like the stream and share it with people you know as you're coming on, as you're seeing this video. Even do that if you're watching this back on replay. You know, please also subscribe to and follow the channel, whatever platform you're looking at it on, because I'm going live on YouTube right now, but this is gonna go out everywhere. Tonight, I'm doing my live. I usually want to do these earlier, 4 p.m. Eastern time, because I do these every week Sunday. However, today it's ended up being quite a bit later. My apologies for that, but hopefully, you all still enjoy it. Tonight, I'm going to be doing a commentary reaction. For those of you who've seen my other channel, just regular Chimoge's comments, you'll know about that segment. And of course, it's fitting that, as always, but I'm going to emphasize it today, I'm in the commentary reaction closet, the most intellectual closet on the internet. So again, as usual, I'm going to either wait 4 whole minutes or until I get 4 likes, whichever comes first, to start the stream properly. So until then, I'll let you guys rest. All right. All right. I think it's been 4 minutes. Oops. All right. Yeah. Sorry about that. All right. Yeah. So I'm just gonna go ahead and begin. So tonight, as you can see from the title, I'm gonna be reacting to a Jordan Peterson video. I haven't seen it, but I saw the title and the thumbnail this morning, and I just thought, this cracker is saying some wild shit. You know, yeah, like Jordan Peterson, for those of you who don't know who he is, he's a psychologist and also noted political commentator, who is kind of a center right to alt right figure. Can debate exactly where you place him on the spectrum, but generally is more known for his more right wing views. Because of that, it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise for any white person saying racist things, and if you listen to his overall ideology, it's just clearly white supremacist through and through. He's an intelligent guy, he's very articulate, but that's part of what makes him so dangerous, because he can just he can use words to make dookie look like chocolate. That's pretty much a specialty. Yeah, anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and just get started. I've not seen the video before, so you'll be seeing my reactions in real time. And the video he made is about Africa, so I know you guys are gonna be thinking, oh, what does this have to do with America? Because this is Chimoge's Comments America. Don't worry, I'll make sure to make that clear. So, okay. So he called his fucking video, Africa is not poor because of colonization. So, obviously this is going to be some sort of, you did it to yourselves, you goddamn N-words, kind of content. That's what it is.
Be so stressed and overwhelmed when you feel like you need to talk to someone about it. And by that, I mean going to.
Okay.
Well, you list here in one of your articles where you make reference to these rating systems.
And it also looks like he's talking to some sellout who's gonna help him make his point. So I think that's who he's talking to. Let me make sure my volume's all the way up. Anyone's on here? Can you hear me? Yeah, all right. I think my volume's good. Anyway, let's look at this nonsense.
Bottom 10 countries for doing business in the world: Chad, Haiti, Central African Republic, Congo, Democratic Republic, South Sudan, Libya, Yemen, Venezuela. There's a lovely example: Eritrea and Somalia. And so there are three exceptions in the African eco.
Never trust what a guy says about Africa if he says Somalia instead of Somalia. Okay, that's already a red fucking flag.
System. Yeah. Mauritius, Rwanda, Kenya, South Africa, Botswana, and Zambia. You pointed out in your prospectus, is it prospectus article?
Prospectus article of
right.
Institute.
Right, that Mauritius is a rising star. And Rwanda is in some ways comparable to Georgia. So some of these countries have started to get this right.
Yes.
And so what's the consequence of that? And what does right mean?
What they have understood, what these countries have understood, is that economic freedom is at the center for prosperity building. Rwanda, for example.
All right. Already, this poor lost sister here. And again, I don't know who she is, but obviously she's sitting down with Jordan Peterson and helping him, perpetuate this goddamn. I should try not to curse too much. That'll hurt the live. But this is the first live commentary reaction I've ever done, by the way. But so y'all are seeing history. But anyway, if she's sitting down and helping this pale-faced weasel just spread this disease around, she's lost. But already, she's talking nonsense. If she's talking about what did she say? The free market? That seemed like what she was applying, but free trade, whatever it was she said, being what has made some of these African countries rich. I mean, first of all, with Rwanda has more money than other African countries because the West and other Eurasian powers use them essentially as an overseer on the rest of the African countries, right? So they use Rwanda and its military to go in, exploit the Congo, exploit the minerals in there, all that kind of stuff, right? And you know, in order to make the Rwandans more amenable to that situation, because again, even that is not a situation Rwandans have chosen, right? Um, you know, they just pour more money into the country. It is what it is. So that's not about some master economic plan executed on behalf of Rwandans. It's just, you know, perks of being like a house Negro on a countrywide scale. And again, I say that again, that's not a situation Rwandans have chosen. Not all Rwandans agree with that situation. And even in that, they're still getting harmed, right? Because, you know, um, from talking to people I know who are from Rwanda, definitely better off than most other African countries, but you're going to have some significant problems that you don't get in the West, and just in general, um, you know, gaps, right? So it's not like this thing has become anything near a utopia. And certainly any gains they've made, it ain't because they've done whatever nonsense she's saying they've done. It just, you know, when you work with massa, you get crumbs. That's all that is.
Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda, is explicit about it. He said he wants to be the Lee Kuan Yew he wants to be the Singapore of Africa, and Lee Kuan Yew is his model. Now, the dirty mouths are going to start shouting, oh yeah, see, authoritarian, blah, 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 whatever. Me, I want to talk only about the on the economic side. If you take Lee Kuan Yew and Singapore as your example, then it means that, like him, you're going to have to be serious about economic freedom. And that's exactly what he did. That's what Singapore did. When Singapore figured that out, they went on to put in the right reforms to make their environment some of the most business-friendly environments in the world, one of the most free markets environment in the world. And you saw the magic of Singapore. Today, Singapore is richer than its ex-colonizer, Great Britain. So when I hear people telling me today, oh, Africa is poor because of colonization, I'm like, please, let's move on from that. Does it have maybe a time?
Oh my God. All right. This is absolute cat excrement, you know, her argument here. Because first of all, you know, I'll admit I haven't studied in depth what happened in Singapore, how they got money. I do know that they had a certain leader who adopted a certain economic model and they got more money, but I haven't analyzed all the other political dynamics that were going on there. But she's basically saying that Singapore got rich because they employed a free market economy and, you know, free trade, and prioritized so-called economic freedom. Um, you know, whether or not that happened in Singapore in the way she's implying, and my hunch is there's a lot of context missing because it's just how I know how these global dynamics work. That is not what is going on in Africa anywhere, right? So whatever is happening in Africa, you can't attribute it to that. Second of all, we got to know that, you know, when people, especially Caucasians and Caucasian aligned people, you neoliberals especially, are using terms like free market, that doesn't mean what it means on its face. That is really just a dog whistle for let Western corporations come in and have their way with your company. So let them come in, let them pay your people 2 cents a day, you know, let them buy up all your land, let them pollute with impunity, you know, let them destroy your local businesses, you know, let them come in and do things that destroy your culture. That is what free market means. Free market is essentially You know, what the dominant Eurasians use to say, like, don't exert any economic sovereignty whatsoever. You know, you don't determine what happens in your economy, we do. That's what free market means. So again, this lady just running her mouth, and then this ugly fool here is just slapping it up.
Tiny percentage in where we are today? Maybe, and I don't know. But I know it's not the cause. Because if it were, many countless countries have been colonized.
And then also, like, I mean, first of all, I will say, again, there's a larger point I want to make. We have to stop talking about colonization as the only period of, you know, Eurasian dominance that Africa suffered, because that's not even close to it. And we also have to stop saying that that was somehow categorically worse than what's going on now, or fundamentally different, because it's not, right? Because you know, I might get into it more at the end of the video, or if she says something, when she says something else wild, I'll go into more detail. But essentially, what's been happening to African people, aka Black people all over the world, is for tens of thousands of years, we've been slowly getting attacked and destroyed more and more by Eurasians all over the globe. So what we've been undergoing over that whole period is a slow period of decline, right? Because of that. So colonization was just one of the more recent parts of that process, right? Now, to say that colonization, you know, was not a, I mean, to totally brush that off as a cause of the problem doesn't make sense. But then especially to say that the larger process of Eurasian domination and attack that it was a part of is not the cause of what's going on in Africa is just patently absurd. So, you know, just ladies running her mouth.
Before, and by the way, colonizing one another is humanity's history. It just happened that maybe Africa has been one of the last, you know, colonized region in the world. So in our psyche, it is there, and it acts like nothing happened before to others. But flash news, it's the history of the world. We've been capturing each other back and forth, all of that. So anyway, but the truth is, Singapore richer than Great Britain today. And then Hong Kong happened. And then because Hong Kong happened, China even today happened. Because China's like, wait a minute, what went on over there? And then China went on to do the exact same thing with its SEZs, the special economic zones, some of the most free market zones in the world. And then look at it happen in communist China, who, when it comes to economics, decided that we're going to do the free market, we're going to be capitalist, because that's the only way. We tried everything else. We killed hundreds of millions of people, and we have nothing to show for it. But now that we're tired of being disrespected members of society, because guess what? That's the other thing too. You want to be respected in this world? You're going to have to be among the prosperous ones for other reasons. Would it be nice, G, that we respect people just because? Absolutely. But that's really not the world we live in. So when China got tired of being disrespected, they're like, maybe we got to build also some prosperity here, because then they're going to hear us. And today, China.
Okay. Oh my God, Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. I really need to try not to curse, because, you know, they could shut me off here, you know, because YouTube Live has its policies. But I mean, Jesus, this is, I mean, this is absolute fecal matter. What's coming out of her mouth? It's crazy. This shit is wild. Like, okay, I'm looking good. Sorry, I'm checking myself on my phone. But anyway, wow, this lady's running her mouth. Okay, she said a lot of miscontextualized nonsense about China. Jesus Christ. I mean, first of all, the idea that you know, the change China has undergone is that it can be characterized as a categorical success. I mean, when you I mean, China has improved from where it was decades ago, sure, but they still have a lot of significant in large part as a result, or at least related to the economic and social models they adopted to quote unquote advance their societies, right? I think namely, if you just look at, you can't divorce economics from all other parts of your society. Everything is intertwined. So if you're importing in someone else's economic system, right, there are cultural assumptions that come in with that. There's even a spirit that comes in with that, and it produces certain things. So, when China kind of adopted some of the West's, hyper capitalist sentiment, they brought in a lot of the garbage that is in Western culture, and in some cases took it to even greater extremes. I think, one example of this is the one-child policy, and I get there were a lot of things that went into that, but I don't doubt that them importing a Western economic system that is built on, the idea that money is more important than life itself, right? That kind of influenced, that policy and the culture that came along with it taking place, or taking root there, right? China taking that up. And then in the end, right, they've caused a massive gender imbalance, and they limited their own population growth, which ironically has made it harder for them to fully liberate themselves from the West. On top of that, a lot of this free market stuff they did was just them essentially allowing their people to be enslaved by the West, making their crap in sweatshops and all that stuff for peanuts. And you can't think that wouldn't do damage to you. So to suggest that Africa just has to follow the Chinese model exactly, right? Without even getting to the fact that what's happening in China is not really this quote unquote free market ideal, right? Because the Chinese government, keeps a pretty tight wrap on its companies. And of course, Western governments do the same thing. They just have a different way of doing it. But, all in all, just, and then also to compare China and Africa. I mean, look, I'm not minimizing what happened to Chinese. Obviously, they lost some wars of the West. They got oppressed significantly, even what they suffered at the hands of Japan. But to compare that to what was happening and what has happened and what is happening to Black people, with all due respect, is absurd. What's happening to Black people, obviously, with any racism, there's going to be similarities, but the degree to which Black people have been enslaved and murdered and just denigrated on a spiritual level is just on a different level. So, I mean, just a crazy, just a crazy to make those kind of one-to-one comparisons and then say we should do what China did. I mean, oh my Lord.
Being one of the, being where it is at, even Hollywood, who tries to tell the world how to think, is being told by China what movies to make and how to tweak stories and history in order to be palatable for them. You see the power that comes with being prosperous.
And that's false, by the way. Like, people think in such black and white terms when that's not it. China has gained some degree of power that it can use to leverage against the West. However, the West is still more powerful So just because China has used a little bit of power directly to maybe, get Hollywood to reduce the amount of kissing in their films doesn't mean they run Hollywood. I mean, come on. Like, if you just look at the films with common sense, it's still white supremacist films. It's not pro-China. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, it's intellectual. Just, I mean, people with the brain the size of, like, fucking worms. I mean, Jesus.
The Consumer Price Index has reached yet another 40-year high, and the latest GDP numbers confirm that the United States is in a recession. Now is not the time to have all your money in the stock market or tied to the US dollar. Protect your savings from a highly turbulent economy by diversifying at least some of your investment portfolio into gold and silver from Birch Gold Group. Text Jordan to 989898. Birch Gold will send you a free information kit on how to transition an IRA or eligible 401k into an IRA in precious metals. Birch Gold will even help you hold gold in a tax-sheltered account. For decades, investors have relied on gold and silver as a hedge against inflation. Now you can too. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, countless 5-star reviews, and thousands of satisfied customers, secure your future with gold from Birch Gold now. Text Jordan to 989898 and get real help from Birch Gold today. Again, text Jordan to 989898 to claim your free no-obligation information kit on how to protect your hard-earned savings with gold.
What would you recommend concretely to countries like Senegal to get the hell out of the way, let's say, of the people who would, like you, would do everything they could to try to make it better? I mean, one of the things that happened with India is India established the Indian Institute of Technology, which is a deadly engineering school, and a huge number of its graduates went to Silicon Valley, as you well know. And many of the successful Indian graduates of IIT started to dump money back into India and build a capitalist infrastructure there, help. So a man who's capable of aggression, but has it under control, is that build a capitalist infrastructure.
I just like to note that, the GDP per capita in India is still about $2,000, which is the same as the GDP per capita of Nigeria. And obviously I'm Nigerian. I'm not dissing Nigeria. I'm just acknowledging that, even though we're richer than most countries in Africa per capita, it's still a relatively poor country, right? I mean, people can't easily access everything they need. So, again, this idea that we should just be copying exactly what India is doing and then everything's going to be fine. I mean, when their GDP per capita is about the same as Nigeria's, sure higher than the average African country, but not by a whole lot. I mean, just crazy idea, just nonsense.
There. So this sort of thing can really take hold. If you were making recommendations to governments who wanted to get on board and stop being like Chad, Haiti, Central African Republic, Congo, South Sudan, Libya, Yemen, and Venezuela, etc., what concrete steps should they take from the bottom up to get the hell out of the way?
Exactly. So two things we've been doing, because I'm a practitioner, as that's my entrepreneurial journey. I'm an entrepreneur, so I practice what I preach, but I also preach. I preach for free markets, and so when it comes to that, I'm one of the hats that I wear is as the director for the African Center for Prosperity of the Atlas Network, the largest organization in the world of free market think tanks around the world. And so what we do there is we work on reforms around the world to take down barriers of entry for local entrepreneurs. So that's one thing. But as we all know, that's a great initiative to take, and we've been making some really good advances in many countries, especially in Ghana. We've been making a lot of progress with our partners there, Imani. But piecemeal, but that is piecemeal legislation. It takes forever. It is hard as heck. Every time you made a year, you made 20 losses over there, and it's a continuous problem. But until we get better, we got to continue at it. So that's one thing we've been doing, and so that's a hat I wear, working with free market think tanks to try to make it easier for local entrepreneurs to join in the party. Additionally,
again, I'm not totally sure what the hell that word word salad she just spit out means. But what I can tell you is the fact that she was that vague means that she's not doing anything. Okay, you know, she's just a grifter, you know, probably working at some nonprofits, pretending she's working, collecting a check, and then the nonprofits, you know, are just raking in donations, you know, saying they're going to help local entrepreneurs get in the fight or get a piece of the pie. What the hell does that mean? Like, concretely, what are you doing? Like, Jesus Christ, man. Oh, these grifters, man. Hey, my sister, get your money, but while you're doing it, please just shut the fuck up. I don't need you spewing your nonsense into the air.
I'm going bold. I'm going radical. For the past few years, we've been advocating an idea for Africa that found some of its roots in Latin America. And again, I'm related to the people who are involved in this. My husband being one of the key figures in this movement, a movement called the Charter Cities. Paul Romer calls it like.
Of course, this is a lover's affair. Of course. Is it nepotism if you grift with your wife? No, I think that's not the right word. I think it's just a lover's grift. I think that's what that is. Anyway.
That he's a Nobel laureate in economics. Others call it the free cities. I like to call it the startup cities. So the best way to think about it, Jordan, and it goes back to what you were talking about earlier when you use the word operating software. Most of the nations, back in the days, the way we used to call it is poor nations, they have regulations for poverty. They're basically
like, oh my god, like. All right, first of all, I am a person who thinks that, you know, a lot of the like word substitution liberals do is a little pointless. So, you know, I think it is kind of funny to say low income instead of poor, as if that makes something better. I mean, you're still saying the same thing. And, you know, even if people don't get that at first, eventually they'll catch on, right? But with that being said, you know, just the way she went out of her way to just call these countries poor. I mean, you know who she's feeding with that. I mean, like, she just went like, hey, just to emphasize, you know, these countries, they're poor. You know, and you can just see some white guy behind this screen just beating off right now because he just loves hearing that. Oh my god, these fucking grifters. I really need to stop cursing. It's gonna. Oh, Lord have mercy. All right.
Regulated for poverty, meaning the laws, the set of law, poverty. It only calls poverty. And so, what some of these folks have thought about, looking at the Dubai example. Dubai just recently entered the top 10 of the international financial centers of the world. And what Dubai did at some point is think about it and be like, on this bare, you know.
Dubai has oil. And they're not getting attacked as much as the African countries with oil. So, of course, Dubai is rich. Why are you comparing African countries to Dubai? Doesn't make sense. And even Dubai is an Arab country that still probably has some residual wealth from the roughly 1,000 years they were selling us as slaves. And on top of that, some residual wealth from the hundreds of years they spent wiping us out of North Africa and stealing our crap. So, and again, they have oil and they are not getting attacked nearly as much as any sub-Saharan African country with oil. So they're able to control, at least to a greater degree, their oil output and the money they get from the oil. So why on God's earth are you comparing sub-Saharan African countries to Dubai. That's like comparing a rich man's son to a homeless man's son just because they both had a hot dog for lunch. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. Lord have mercy.
Sand, plot of sand that's technically worth nothing right now as is. This 110 acres of land, sand everywhere. They're like, well, maybe Sharia law is not the best for business. We got to think about better set of laws for business. We're talking about only about business, not family law, not anything else but business. And they decided there's got to be something better. And so they looked around and it's like,
you might have seen videos like this before, but here's the big secret. Anyone can make one of these videos in a...
actually when
I'm not crazy, right? Hold up. I just need to make sure I'm not fucking crazy. Dubai has oil, don't they? Yeah, the UAE, where Dubai is in. Forgive me, Dubai isn't a city, or I forget how the UAE is structured. Are there individual cities, technically countries? Dubai is the most populated city in the United Arab Emirates and the capital of the Emirate of the Dubai, the most populate of the 7 monarchies, which together form the United Arab Emirates. So, okay, it looks like they have okay, so Dubai itself is not a country; it's just the cap. Well, I guess it is, right? Because the Emirate of Dubai, I guess you could also call that one Dubai. And it's just their capital has the same name. Okay. United Arab Emirates consists of 7 emirates, which were historically known as the Trucial States. There are no internal barriers hindering movement between the emirates. So, okay, it's some sort of confederation-like system. But anyway, Dubai. How did Dubai become so rich? The UAE is the 3rd richest country in the world, below Luxembourg at number 2 and Qatar at number 1. And they're talking GDP per capita, right? With a GDP per capita of $57,744. The bulk of its money comes from the production of goods and provision of services related to petroleum, otherwise known as oil, petrochemicals, which come from oil, aluminum, and cement. So, like, what? Because most African countries don't even have crazy oil. But then the ones that do are getting attacked like crazy. I mean, so why would you compare all of sub-Saharan Africa to Dubai and say just do what Dubai did? When these fools have oil that most African countries don't have, and they have a degree of freedom that most African countries don't have. Yeah, the pale people colonized them too, and still to some degree control what they do to a large degree, but not to nearly the same degree as us. Because at the end of the day, them and the pale boys are our cousins. They're much more closely related to each other than they are to us. And because the pale boys mode of operation, just like the whole Eurasian family, is the further away from me, the further away from me you are, rather, the worse I treat you. They treat the Africans worse. So they just done a whole lot worse crap to us, right? And coupled with the fact that, the sand, the people who come from sand, basically did the same thing as the pale boys and got some benefit from that. They're just kind of less successful, but still pretty successful at that. you know, you just can't make these kind of one-to-one comparisons and say, do this and you'll be successful. I mean, let me just finish up the video before I just say everything. But like, Lord have mercy, this is, oh my God, Lord have mercy. This lady's talking nonsense.
To take one of the terms you used earlier, they're starting to realize, common law is actually a pot of sand that's technically worth nothing right now as is. This 110 acres of land, sand everywhere. They're like, well, maybe Sharia law is not the best for business. We got to think about better set of laws for business. We're talking about only about business, not family law, not anything else but business. And they decided there's got to be something better. And so they looked around, and that's actually when, to take one of the terms you used earlier, they're starting to realize, common law is actually a better way for business, specifically British common law. So at that point, and I'm oversimplifying here because otherwise we can totally geek out on it. Remember, this is like one of my latest things that I've been involved in, but latest, it's been the past 10 years, and I'm going to share with you a win. So Dubai is like, we have to adopt British, common law, primarily British common law. We're going to hire retired British common law judges to come and educate the law here, train our own people. And that, along with many other reforms, to also become a top center when it comes to the, and in the free market when it comes to the finances. Dubai.
That British common law system. So it's.
Okay, first of all, again, I'm not pro Sharia law here. Like, to the extent that I understand it, I'll add in that caveat just because, I'm no expert in Sharia law. So I guess what I really should say is that, I'm not a guy who is gonna say Sharia law is above critique. I think that's a more accurate statement of my opinion on that. Just because my knowledge is limited. However, I don't think these people know what the hell Sharia law is, and I don't think they know what they're talking about. Because, I don't know how that impacts business, and again, because conservatives tend to misuse the term Sharia law a lot. I know that much. So I don't even know to what extent it was even in place in Dubai. But if it was, I have a hard time believing that specifically was an impediment to them making money. Because again, Arabs at various parts of history have been very rich. Before the era of white supremacy, right before that, about a few hundred years ago, Arabs were one of the richest, if not the richest, group of people in the world. The Chinese might have been richer, and of course, one of the richest people in the world in the Eastern Hemisphere, I should say, because I think that the like people in the Americas also had a lot of money. But point is, historically, I don't know if you could be accurate to say that's an impediment to them making money. And by the same token, English common law, to the degree it is relevant to business, I don't know, you could say it guarantees wealth. I mean, the British gone broke plenty of times. I just think it's a ridiculous argument. This is like, a Fox News host at the bar at 2 a.m. in the morning spouting nonsense. Like, Lord have mercy.
It's very, very interesting theologically and metaphysically. So it's predicated on the idea that every individual has all the rights that there are, except for those that are specifically regulated and limited by legal necessity. And then generally that That realm of necessity has emerged only as a consequence of disputes between people. So you're free to do whatever you want unless you have a dispute with someone else. Then the dispute is adjudicated according essentially to constitutional and theological principles, and then a precedent is established. Then the whole body of law built up that body of precedents.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's bottom up, not top down.
It's totally
and
that.
English common law is a gift from God, man.
No,
it's something else.
Absolutely. And that's the key word there when you said bottom up. So common law is so much better for bottom up approaches. And we all know that markets work better in a bottom up approach. And also, when they have to educate the law and resolve a dispute, they're going to be much more respectful to the contract that was passed between the two parties than, say, civil law would be. Right?
Mhm.
And so anyway, so from this standpoint here, you have Dubai who is now trying to put all of this together, and eventually they put a set of laws together that would now be conducive to being a top international financial center in the world. And voila, in less than a generation, in less than 25 years, Dubai completely unrecognizable.
Okay. My IQ might have just gone down, so forgive me if I sound a little stupid when I come back to you guys. Lord have mercy. Stop sharing my screen. But yeah, that was nonsense. So long story short, to sum up my thoughts on that video, obviously I gave you a lot of thoughts while that you know that cat feces was rolling. The idea that the problems Africa has today were not caused by attacks from outsiders is patently absurd. That's what the overall gist of what they're implying, they're outright saying. And sure, there's a nuanced conversation to be had about not over focusing on colonialism specifically as like the one time that outsiders really attacked Africa, right? And acknowledging that this is a tens of thousands of year old process, of which colonialism was just one segment, if you will. But regardless, right, to say that it's not one of the causes of the problems that Africa has today doesn't make sense. To say that the larger process it's a part of is not the cause doesn't make sense. And then crucially, right, these people talked about how it's not the cause of why Africa is poor, but they never really said why it is poor. Now, I think they want you to infer that's because Africans are stupid, or just hurt themselves, whatever. And that's not it. Like obviously, there are obviously times when Africans do hurt each other, wars. You can look at some sellout behavior that occurred during the so-called slave trade, and obviously there's a lot of myths and nonsense that is commonly accepted about what has happened, is continuing to happen to African people, and certain things like the so-called slave trade, right? I know a lot of you be confused as to why I'm calling it the so-called slave trade, and that's a lot to get into. I don't want to get into all that. All I will just say is that those things are a lot more forced than is commonly made out to be, and that instances when Africans attack each other, it's really part of the design and the effect of the outside attacks, right? Because when you put stress on a people, long story short, they can end up eating each other in their distress. And then on top of that, you do have a lot of individuals who are traders and are being paid and controlled by the outsiders to carry out the attacks and make it look like the outsiders are not the one, like the Eurasians are not the one doing the attacking, right? But I say that all to say they didn't, provide, other than implying that, is African stupidity, they didn't provide an alternative explanation of what is the cause of African problems. And most crucially, they didn't provide a clear, plan of what Africa should do in their minds to improve itself, right? Other than just vaguely saying we should copy certain Asian countries that have increased the amount of money they have in the past few decades, right? Without looking at the overall context in which those Asian countries did those things and assessing whether or not they're actually really doing that much better than they were decades ago. Because let's be clear, just because you gained more money doesn't mean you're overall better, because money is not the only important thing. Like in the case of China, all due respect to the people of China, but if you've increased the amount of money you have, but you lowered your birth rate, in my opinion, you're worse off, right? Because human beings are the continuation of your lineage is the most valuable thing you have. So to cut that off for money is mental. Absolutely just mental. Oh my Lord. It's crazy, but yeah, so anyway, they're talking nonsense. But anyway, let me explain why I decided to react to that video and how it's relevant to this channel, right? So I know a lot of you watching right now are going, okay, Chimoge, we get it. That lost sister and her zaddy there were running their mouth. They were polluting the air. What they said about Africa wasn't true. But what does this have to do with America? Why are you bringing this up on Chimoge's Comments America? I want to take y'all back to the video I did a few weeks ago, might have been a couple months. Time flies. When I talked about the change in direction of this channel, and I outlined the three major issues I wanted to talk about. The first one is the impending internal conflict in the US, the impending 1861 Part 2, right? That's the first thing this channel focuses on. The second thing is how I believe Black people who live in America should vote. And the third thing is the impending probable mass forced removal of Blacks from the US. And that removal will either happen by removing our bodies from the US and placing them in another country against our will and without our direction, or from taking our souls and removing them from our bodies, if you catch my drift. Deletion, as it is so euphemistically called, en masse. And I'm speaking in euphemisms because the nature of lives, if I say certain words, I think it's possible that it'll get ended. But anyway, I think that video is especially relevant to those last two topics, and especially the last one of the mass force removal, because the fundamental reason why Black people in America are in a position where we're at risk of the mass force removal is because Africa is weak. What do I mean when I say that? A person who is disrespected at home is disrespected abroad, right? The countries where the vast majority of Africans live And the majority of those countries are in sub-Saharan Africa, because that's just where, for historical reason, our population is most concentrated, are weak, exploited by outsiders, and unable to advocate for their people. Therefore, other countries know that they can abuse Africans, right? And Black and African are synonym in this context. So any of y'all here in America who say, oh, I'm not African, I'm Black, I'm an indigenous, you know, I'm an alien, you know, I'm a pig with dark skin, whatever you're saying you are, and I'm not African, like, no, you're talking nonsense. When I use the term African, it applies to you, okay? So let's stop playing those games. But anyway, other countries know that they can abuse Africans in their own countries with impunity, because if they do that, the vast majority of Africans who live in other parts of the world are not going to come to their aid through the action of a state or any sort of other action, right? It's different when you talk about, for example, a white person who's in Africa. The fundamental reason, the biggest fundamental reason why that white person is not going to get harassed is because everyone knows somewhere in the back of their mind that if they do that, the United States, most powerful majority white country on earth, the most powerful country on earth, period, is going to come give them trouble. They know Europe, the European countries are going to come and give them trouble, right? They know even a country like Australia could come and give them trouble because these countries are powerful, right? It's like if you know that a kid has a large older brother who will fight for him, you're not going to bully that kid. But you know, if a small kid's family are weak, if you're a bully, you'll bully that kid, because it's like, what's going to happen? It's a very basic human principle, but then it manifests on the larger collective level, right? So in order to one of the key, really the key long-term solution to preventing a mass forced removal of Blacks from the US, if Blacks choose to remain here, and I'll get to why I use that phrase in a second, is to build up the majority Black countries of the world, the vast majority of which are in sub-Saharan Africa, right? There's that. Then, on top of that, right, one thing we have to strongly consider to avoid the mass forced removal of Blacks from the US is a voluntary exit from the US, otherwise known as repatriation. Might be inconvenient and sad to those of us who become attached to America, but deletion is even sadder, right? So we really have to consider that option when we're talking about how to save ourselves, right? And really, to save ourselves in that context, you have to move to a majority Black country. It doesn't necessarily have to be one sub-Saharan Africa, but that is obviously a major option that can make a sense for a lot of us, right? And really, the stuff they said about sub-Saharan Africa, it applies to all the majority Black countries of the world. That's why they even threw Haiti in there, you know, because really people don't, you know, because generally the Caribbean is viewed a little less harshly than sub-Saharan Africa itself, because there's this false idea that because it's really messed up, but because the people who live in the Caribbean now were brought there forcefully by Caucasians, they were civilized, so they're a little less bad than the people living in sub-Saharan Africa. It's a nonsense concept, but that's what people believe. People generally believe that with the Caribbean. However, Haiti, I would say, is a bit of an exception to that. I think Haiti is really viewed almost exactly the same, if not really exactly the same as your average African country. Even if you look at the GDP per capita of Haiti, most of the Caribbean countries have a GDP per capita that's still quite low, but it's much higher than your average African country. You might be talking tens of thousands of dollars per capita, or at least a few thousand. Haiti, it's something like $700 per capita, which is on par with your average sub-Saharan African country, right? So I say all that to say, you know, this demonization of these majority Black countries, you know, it's as it relates to repatriation, you know, it makes it, you know, it discourages implicitly people from moving back, because by implying that, oh, these places are so bad, people are going to be like, oh, I'm not going there, I'm just going to stay here in Idaho or wherever I am, right? Even if that doesn't necessarily make political sense. Yeah, so you know, that demonization really is gonna prevent people from saving themselves. And another thing I want to add also, you know, I think I alluded to this. I don't know if I said this explicitly before, but if this relates more to the previous point about, you know, needing to build these countries up, so that we're powerful enough to advocate for ourselves and defend ourselves. You know, if we misidentify the cause of the problems in these countries, we're not going to effectively get to the solution, right? Because if we think, oh, the problem's not colonialism, the problem's not oppression by other people, the problem is just, you know, we're stupid. Let's adopt, you know, the Chinese economic model, and that's going to solve all our problems. I mean, we're going to be sitting here in 50 years. We're going to be just as bad off as we are worse. No progress, no power, right? So anyway, right, the whole reason I'm bringing this up is because you know, we need to be wise to the tricks and propaganda that the Eurasian controlled, and especially Caucasian controlled media is putting out about Africa and the other majority Black regions of the world, because it prevents us from seeing the situation clearly. And for those of us who live in America, it's an additional impediment to us doing what we need to do politically if we operate based upon the propaganda they're putting out, right? If you believe that, you know, if you believe that, you know, Africa's problems, for example, are being caused by its own stupidity and not the oppression of outsiders, you're never going to effectively build up African countries such that they can advocate for you when you're outside of the country, at least enough so you don't get deleted. And that also, if you do need help in a repatriation effort, they could come and help you. Because that's another thing I meant to add about the repatriation. That could be a big effort. So ideally, you'd want those majority Black countries to be strong enough and have enough resources to effectively help you evacuate the United States, and then also provide some basic resources for you when you're coming back as a refugee. That's really what would be happening, unfortunately. So yeah, you know, if you know, we operate based off of their propaganda, we'll never properly build up these majority Black countries. And the negative sentiment they put into our heads about it will make us overly reluctant to return or really move back for the first time. For most of us, move there, not back, for the first time, in order to avoid harm, because we just have such a large negative sentiment about it. So we really have to be careful about those media narratives. And when we see filth like what Jordan Peterson and that fool put out, we need to be prepared to counter it. And at least for ourselves, just know it's not true, and spread the word to our fellow Black people that it's not true. And of course, I know I'm gonna have people watching this who aren't Black. Hello. Obviously, in the grand scheme of things, whether you know it or not, it does not help anyone if Black people are getting abused like this. So it would be the right thing for you to do to, um, you know, also call out that stuff when you see it as well. Now, obviously, I understand that most Eurasians, do not have the mental constitution to, advocate for the rights and well-being of Black people. And that's unfortunate, which is why, for my Black audience, I tell you that regardless of what they do, we need to get ourselves right. But, to my Eurasian audience, I will say, just for the record, it's definitely a good thing to do, both for us and you, to call out that kind of nonsense, just for the record. But anyway, that's all of what I got to say. Last thing I want to do before I hop off, I really want to look up who that fool he brought on was. I don't know, like, who is she? It doesn't say who this person was. Yeah, because it just didn't say. Okay. Yeah, where's the description? All right, let's try looking this up. Jordan Peterson, Africa, colonization. Is that her name, Maguette Wade? Yeah, it says his guest on this being Maguette Wade. All right, let's look her up. Maguette Wade. She's an entrepreneur. She's Senegalese. Apparently she has a TED Talk. That seems Wade, very non-Senegalese. Let's look at this husband. Looks like her husband is a Caucasian. That's what I'm seeing. Is it? Although her husband seems to have a different last name. Yeah, and this guy educated at Harvard, St. John's College, University of Chicago. So bred to be an op. For the record, yes, I also went to Harvard, but I'm different. I resisted the brainwashing. But when you see where people are coming from, generally, even though there are exceptions, that can tell you what their beliefs and motives are. But I don't know. Is that the husband? Let's look up. Oh, maybe the name is pronounced Wade. Maybe it's her actual name and it's Wade. You know what? No, yeah, she is married to this Michael Strong character. Yeah, so again, at some point on my other channel, I'm gonna talk about interracial marriage in depth, and I'm not gonna say it's bad in every single case, literally every single case. I don't believe that, but we have to admit there is a general trend, because again, white people don't stop being racist when they get in a relationship with a black person. That's the sad reality. It's not necessarily true. So I think a lot of times, when you see grifters like this, they're married to a white person who reinforces or could even be the driving factor behind the anti-black sentiment they put out. And then also just when you see someone grifting like this, talking down on their people, putting out this kind of rhetoric against their own people, it's often coupled with an underlying mentality that makes them so anti-black they wouldn't they never partner with a member of their own race. So I'd say all that to say, these are some red flags you can see when you look at sellouts, these kind of things. Not saying whenever you see one of those things, that's all the person is always a sellout. But unfortunately, there is a strong degree of correlation. That's just something that has to be acknowledged. It is what it is. Yeah, but anyway, I just want to know more about her. But it just looks like she's, just a grifter. Where is she coming from? Maguette Wade, or is it Wade? I don't know. Was born in Senegal, educated in Germany and France, and launched her entrepreneurial career in the San Francisco Bay Area, where she co-founded Adina World Beverages after working closely with Silicon Valley startups. Okay, so she is a Silicon Valley pawn, clearly. She is fluent in and conducts business in Wolof, the predominant indigenous language of Senegal, French, and English. And she may be contacted at, those things. So yeah, obviously this lady is just a mouthpiece for some companies, nonprofits, that sort of thing. It's always good to know what background people are coming from. I might do a reaction next to her TED Talk because apparently she does have a TED Talk. Ade Wade. She has a YouTube channel. She's on here criticizing BLM and Marxism. Looks like she's just your typical sellout conservative grifter. You hate to see it, but it is what it is. But anyway, I just wanted to check her out. But anyway, bottom line, don't believe any of these nonsense narratives about Africa, because if you do, it'll hamper your ability to properly deal with, the specter of forced removal. I was going to say relocation, but forced removal of blacks from the U.S. because those two issues are inextricably linked. It is what it is. But anyway, I'm gonna, it's approaching midnight now, so I'm gonna get going. Thank you all so much for watching. As I said before, please like the video and share it with people you know. Please also subscribe to my channel. or follow whichever platform you're looking on. This live is happening on YouTube, but it's going to go out everywhere else. So you might be watching this on Facebook, Instagram, Rumble, wherever. Please just follow so you can see more of my content. Please also consider donating, because I have the link to donate in the live chat, as well as in the description of the video. That really helps the channel a lot. I do these live streams on this channel every Sunday. The aim is to do them at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Sometimes, frequently, African time does get added to that. My goal is to make the African time small so that even I can eventually just be more consistent, starting them right at 4 p.m. Eastern time. But every Sunday, definitely be doing these lives here on Chimoge's Comments America, and on my other channel, Chimoge's Comments. I go live every Saturday at 4 p.m. And I just did a video yesterday on Tom Brady over there, so if you could check that out as well, and subscribe there as well. But anyway, I'll let you all go. Please have a good night. See you later.